I'm Salome with Integrally, and I'm here with Maggie Anders. She's an advocate for liberty, and she's also the host of the YouTube series Undoctrination. So let's jump into our Q&A. Maggie, Gen Z has been shown with some surveys to be leaning more conservative than previous generations. Do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing, and why?
I think it's mostly good. And, to give some perspective, it's pretty normal for young people to rebel against what the previous generation was doing and to question the status quo. So we typically think of teenagers as being more liberal because we see society as being conservative, and that maybe was true a long time ago. However, we've seen wokeism, leftism kind of dominate these institutions, and a lot of young people are questioning that. Now, I do want to question if Gen Z is actually becoming more conservative. I would say the boys are certainly becoming more conservative, and I think there's quite a few reasons for that. The crux of the issue, I think, for young men is that they are being restricted in society. They feel they don't have a place anymore. They're lacking purpose. And I think a lot of young men are concerned that one wrong move could end it all for them. And so a society that lacks mercy is not a society that Gen Z wants to live in. I think that's a completely fair sentiment to hold.
Okay, great answer. And that brings me to my next question, which is, are women to blame for wokeness?
So this is a real can of worms to get into.
Yup.
I would hesitate to blame women for wokeness, especially because wokeness as an ideology has swept our institutions. But those institutions are not totally run by women, right? So men are also fairly complicit in accepting wokeism. But I think that infectious disease has spread in different ways for genders. For women, I think it's been playing on maybe some maternal instincts to mother the poor of our society, which is quite condescending, right? To think that everyone needs your help all of the time, that everyone's a victim. But I do think it plays into that aspect of women's nature. But also, I think women are consensus-seeking individuals, and so we have a hard time saying hard truths, especially if we feel we're going to be socially ostracized. So I think wokeism spread that way because certain people had the bully pulpit and other people went along with it. But as for men, I think fear is how wokeism spread for men. Men often want to have stability and maintain jobs. And so wokeism threatened that stability and that financial security for a lot of men, especially men in higher up positions in these institutions and these companies. And so they went along with things that maybe they otherwise might not have. I think we're seeing a nationwide reality check right now, and people feel free to explore other ideas and say things that they wouldn't have dared to say, especially not publicly, even a year ago. So I think we're seeing a real return to bravery and courage, and that's happening with women too. I know a lot of women who are now embracing more, I wouldn't say even right-wing ideas, but just common sense beliefs that have been not so in vogue in recent years. So
that makes sense. Great answer. Okay, and that brings me to my last question for you, which is, if libertarians could only focus on one issue for advocating to people that don't agree with them, what issue should that be?
That's super easy, actually. Affordability. It's the one issue I think we best everybody in the game on, because everything that has become super unaffordable, all of those things that are now out of reach for young people, housing, higher education, healthcare, those are the three big ones, right? Those are all unaffordable for reasons of government interference, of the Fed controlling our money, of supply restrictions, of creating surging demand by subsidizing people in these industries. So it's the best issue for us to advocate on because we have the best solutions, and it also is a really good example of why the other side is wrong and why their ideas are bad and harm people. So, yeah.
I know I agree with that, but let us know what you think. Check the description so that you can open up integrally, where you can rate Maggie's argument and you can share your own. Let's continue the conversation somewhere where the best ideas rise to the top.